Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to yet another episode by DSB. And today we have Mr. Obeid Jasnaik. He is from Aquo Accounting, and he is going to answer everyone's query about corporate tax. Why do we need it? What was the requirement? Why did the government suddenly introduce corporate tax, first of all? So you have to start from there, Obeid, and over to you now.
Okay, I'll just share my screen.
Sure.
Okay, so hi everybody. Welcome to this webinar. Today we are going to understand what corporate tax is, how does it affect you, and what are the misconceptions that are commonly going around, whether it applies to you, whether it doesn't apply to you. We will be going through how it is to be calculated and what are the main requirements and at the end of it, we will be having a Q&A session as well. So let's start. Firstly, I want to start by thanking Ms. Rakhee for hosting this webinar today and giving me the opportunity to share key ideas and how this corporate tax affects all of us. So these are the few topics that we'll be going through today. This is just the index. So this is a short description about my firm. We started this company, Aquo Accounting, last year with one key goal of helping startups and SMEs because of the introduction of corporate tax in UAE. There is a lot of confusion. People don't know what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to be in compliance, and of course, everybody wants to avoid penalties. So that was the key basics behind which we started this firm, so we can help and guide everyone. Okay, introduction to corporate tax. So what is corporate tax, right? It's a very basic form of tax. It's the first type of direct tax which is applied on companies in UAE, and it will be levied on the net income or profit which is derived from your business activities. When it will become effective, it started becoming effective from 1st June 2023. The first deadline for city return has also been issued a few days back, which is December 2024. Role of FTA in this thing. So FTA stands for Federal Tax Authority. They are the government authority who is being elected to be responsible for the administration, collection, and enforcement of corporate tax. So all your registrations, all your queries have to be raised to FTA. Your payment of the tax also has to be done to FTA, and any penalties have to be levied or any audit has to be done will also all be done by FTA. That is their role. And who does it apply to? So if you have a license in UAE or even without a license, if you're engaged in a business activity as a natural person or as a resident person of UAE, then corporate tax applies to you. This is the main question which everyone always asks, right? Who is exempt from? So this is not an easy category. These are few of the list which we have as denoted by FTA on the website. So if it's a federal or emirate government or the departments or authorities, of course you are exempt from corporate tax. If it's a wholly government-owned company, if your business is engaged in extraction of UAE natural resources, that means oil or metals of any sort, public benefit entities, investment funds. Of course, if you have a like if you're a private pension or social security fund, or if you're a UAE judicial person, then you are exempt from corporate tax. Now we get to the main crux, right? So rates and thresholds. It's very simple. There is no confusion in it. If you are an individual or a judicial person, right? Taxable income up to and including 375,000, you will not pay. So if your taxable income is up to 375,000, you will be paying zero. It will be 0% for you. Amounts exceeding 375,000 will be levied at 9% tax.
Okay.
That is for individuals and judicial person. Now, if you're a qualifying free zone person, right? If you have any qualifying income, and that's a very extensive list, and there are lots of requirements that you have to fulfill to come under the qualifying income category. Only then it will be 0%. Otherwise, it's same as above. Any income which exceeds 375,000, it's at 9%.
Okay. So with the same thing, there was a question by Mr. Javed Khan from Business and Beyond. He had a question: if anyone wants to open a company in free zone or any free zone, how he can manage to corporate tax by not paying any or paying minimum, please, he's saying.
Okay. So how you have to understand that is just by opening a company in a free zone, you don't automatically get exempt from corporate tax, right? There are certain list of activities like the ones we saw above. In addition to that, if you have a manufacturing company, if you are a processing company, or if you have a logistics company, then it can be considered as a qualifying income. But in addition to that, there are certain more conditions as well, that you have to provide services to another free zone company itself, right? Or if you provide it to a mainland company, it has to be directly to a business. It cannot be to an individual person. So if you are, for example, let's say you have a textile manufacturing company, if you make clothes, right, and then if you're selling them directly to the end user, then that becomes an excluded activity. It's not a qualifying activity anymore. But if you sell these goods to a distributor, let's say in another free zone, then it can be considered as a qualifying income. But still, there are more conditions that you have to qualify, that this activity which you're doing has to be either it has to be majority of your income. It should be at least 95% of your total income which you're earning. Then you qualify for it. You have to get your audit done. You have to submit audit reports to the free zone, and you have to make an application to FTA as well, that I'm a qualifying person and I'm applying for exemption. Only on that particular case, you can avail this 0% qualifying income. Otherwise, the conditions are very strict. It's not available to everyone. So before we discuss that you want to open a company in free zone and you want to pay minimum tax, question number one will be, what is the business activity that you want to do? Because if the activity you want to do is under the excluded category, then it doesn't matter what other conditions you satisfy, you will not be able to avail that benefit and you will have to pay 9% tax on that.
I see. It is a problem with this corporate tax because there are certain, my clients who have faced this issue that they had applied for corporate tax, but it took more than 48 hours and it took nearly 2 months for certain people to get the registration done. Is it true?
So what happens in that case is that if you register before the deadline, so we will be discussing deadlines when we proceed further.
Perfect.
So if you register within the deadline, that is the requirement of FTA, that you have to register for corporate tax within your particular deadline. So everybody, depending on their license date, has different deadlines, right? So as long as you register, it is fine. Then after that, what happens is FTA has a lot of burden, right? Even they are overloaded. So sometimes few applications go in review. So you will find two types of cases, right? Either one, the second you apply, you will get it on the spot. Or sometimes it goes in review, sometimes it takes days, sometimes it takes up to 3 weeks as well. So, but you don't have to worry about it, because issuance of corporate
when
tax.
it's in that period of review, during that period of review, do you still get fines?
No, you don't. So as long as you have applied, because this happened with one of my clients, right? Their deadline was 31st May. We had applied we registered for the corporate tax in April. And once it was done in April, we finally got the certificate in June, end of June. But there was no fine on that company, although they were past their deadline, because they had a few corrections they wanted us to make. So they gave us. So that's okay. That is not an issue. So you log in, you make the adjustments within time, it is okay. The problem which happens is if you made a mistake during your application, or if there was some change which FTA requires you to make, right? So the change in this particular case was the way I wrote the name in Arabic. Although I copy pasted, but they had a requirement that you have to write it in this particular way. So if you respond to them on time and your application doesn't get rejected, then it is fine. If you did not log in and did not update, that adjustment required within the time, and if your application got rejected and you're past the deadline, then yes, 100% a fine will come.
Oh.
So whatever changes have to be done
Basically,
within that
who is
application.
responsible for these errors if this kind of error comes? So the person who is doing the corporate tax, the company, or the agent who has done it?
Okay, so what happens is there are three types of cases which we will face, right? Number one is, let's say, I will use my example in this case. Let's say I have a company, right? And I am doing the registration myself. So, of course, I will put my email ID, I will put my password. Any requirement or any update from FTA will come on my email ID. So that becomes my responsibility to keep an eye on those emails. When the email comes, I log in promptly. I make whatever changes are required as per FTA or provide them whatever document they have requested on time, and things will go smoothly. Number two, which happens is there are FTA agents who have their own login IDs, right? And they take care of everything. So if any update comes, the client or my company in this case, I will not receive anything. The tax agent I have hired, he will receive the email and he's supposed to keep an eye on it. So if any mistake happens, then of course the tax agent becomes responsible. Then there is a third case, in which case what happens is the tax agent or whoever is doing the corporate tax registration for you, he will ask you for your email ID and password.
Yes.
And he will do it on your account.
Yes.
In that particular case, it is highly recommended, at least I do to all my clients, to keep an eye on your email at all times, right? So if you receive any email, you have to promptly inform your agent so he can do it.
Right.
And with my personal experience, very rarely will a client update you on time. So I have this practice that till the certificate doesn't come, every 2 days I keep logging in.
So later
and I
on
keep
the email ID can be changed, yeah?
Later on, the email ID can be changed. Yes, all taxable details can be updated.
Okay. Okay, we'll move forward with your thing.
Okay. So next, this is the most important question, right? Tax calculations. So for this particular example, we will assume that your net profit after all adjustments, after everything, the final taxable income or net profit as we call it will be AED 500,000, right? So taxable net profit of 375,000 will be at 0%, right? As we just discussed in the previous slide. Then taxable net profit exceeding AED 375,000. So you calculate the difference between 500 and 375,000, that is 125,000. And this 125,000 will be taxed at 9%. So that will be 11,250. So your total corporate tax liability for your tax period will be AED 0 plus AED 11,250, which is total AED 11,250. Let's move to the next one. So registration and compliance. Now this is basically the problem which most companies face, or the biggest you can say misconception which people have, right? What are the things that if you hold a license or if you are a resident tax resident person in UAE, what are you supposed to do, right? What are the four most important things that every company has to do? Number one, if you hold a business license, every company has to register for corporate tax, right? Most people will come and tell me, I have less revenue, I have this, I have that. It doesn't matter. If you have a license, you have to register for corporate tax. Number two, every company has to maintain accounting records, right? Even if there are no records, you still have to maintain them. Number three, all sales and expenses supporting need to be documented for 7 years. So what this means is, so you have accounting, right? I will explain this point briefly.
Okay.
If you have accounting records, let's say you purchased your license. When you apply for your license, there are expenses. Of course, this you want to claim as a business expense against your sales, right?
Correct.
The supporting, for the invoice which you will get, all your documents related to it, your sales invoices which you will have, even a simple, let's say you filled petrol, right? You were on your way to your client, you filled petrol, and this petrol is a travel expense for your company and you want to claim it. This petrol bill also has to be supported and has to be documented for 7 years. FTA has the right to come and ask you questions up to 7 years, and you have to provide them with the relevant supporting for every transaction which is recorded in your accounting records. And the last and most important one, every company has to file corporate tax returns on an annual basis. If you, because you will have registered, you have to file for CT. So I will just go back one slide just to explain the last point. Let's say your revenue was, your net profit was under 375,000 dirhams, right? So people can always ask that I don't have to pay any tax, so what do I file? So you go and do a zero return filing.
Okay.
You still have to tell them that I didn't make 375, I made 200, I made 250, or I made 10 dirhams for that matter, right? Even the 10 dirhams, if you made sales, you still have to go and you have to provide the detailed breakup of exactly what were your transactions and what was your financial history during the year.
Okay.
Now, the most hot topic which is going on in UAE since this year, right? That is the deadline. What happened was on 28th February 2024, FTA issued certain deadlines and timelines on who holding which license issued on which date has to register before what deadline. So we will talk about all licenses that were issued before 1st March 2024. I will explain why this date is important shortly. So if your license is issued before 1st March 2024, you don't have to focus on the date, you will only focus on the month. So if your license was between 1st January to 29th February, this can be 2023, it can be 2019, it could be 1978, it could be anything, right? As long as the month is between 1st January to 29th February, your deadline was 31st May. Now, all of these deadlines are over. The most recent one, which went 4 days back, was for 30 September for licenses issued between 1st July to 31st July, right? Now there are only 3 more deadlines remaining. If your license is between 1st August to 30 September, is 31st October. If your license is between 1st October to 30 November, is 30 November. And if it is issued from 1st December to 31st December, it is 31st December. Please note these deadlines are for licenses issued before on 2023 or before. It is not for the ones which are issued in 2024. The licenses which are issued after 1st March 2024 have another deadline, and this is even more stricter. You have 3 months from license issue date to register for corporate tax. This particular category is where most people are getting penalized right now.
Okay.
Because they get the license, nobody tells them you have 3 months to register for corporate tax, and then by the time they find someone or they get this information, it is too late. So this is something everyone who owns a license or has taken a license, please go check your date, calculate 3 months from that date, and you have to issue it within the 3 months.
Correct.
Now this is a more relaxed date. This is return filing and payment date. So this was the initial deadline for registration as well, but this was changed on 28th February. So if you we'll use an example. Let's say your financial year is from 1st January to 31st December 2024, right? So you will calculate 9 months. That goes to 30 September 2025. Before 30 September 2025, you have to make sure that your accounting is done, your financials are maintained, all the supporting is attached, everything is documented properly. You go to FTA website, you file your returns, and you make sure that if there is any tax which you have to pay, then you pay it, you settle it, and you clear everything before 9 months end. If you cross 9 months, certain penalties will start getting applied. I think it is 500 dirham per day or per month.
Per day?
And I think it's per month. I was just checking it today. I think it's per month.
Okay.
So now,
yeah.
And it's applied from day one. So it's like it's 30 September 2025. The second it's 1st October, 500 dirhams. And if you are late, if you do not register on time, then the penalty for late registration is 10,000 dirhams. This is a very heavy penalty. That's why I implore everyone with a license, or if you know someone who has a license, please register on corporate tax. Do not, I even recommend to my clients not to wait for these deadlines. If you have these type of, if you have a license which falls within these dates, please register now and do not wait for the last minute.
So I have a question, smaller, before you proceed. Even that DED trade license, the small ones, they have to register?
The e-trader license.
Huh?
Yeah, the e-trader license is actually considered as a freelance permit under as per FTA. They don't consider it as a proper LLC license. So what they do is they have given a leeway. They consider that as a natural person license. And if you have revenue of more than 81 million dirhams, only then you have to register for corporate tax. Otherwise, you don't have to register for corporate tax. But this category is only for the e-trader license.
Correct. 1 million, huh?
1 million dirhams. That is considered as a sole proprietor.
Correct.
Yeah, so that's why that particular license. So this is actually another misconception which happens. We will discuss that in our next topic, right?
Yes.
People think that because sole proprietors are exempt, right, They confuse their single shareholder license with a e-trader license. So even if you have a single shareholder license, either it's a free zone company or an LLC, it is still a proper license. It doesn't matter if it is just one owner. You still have to register for corporate tax. Only an e-trader license is the exempt one. So now let's discuss common misconceptions. Number one, most important one. I am a small company. Corporate tax only affects large corporations, right? This is true to the extent that your net profit is less than 375,000 dirhams. Then it doesn't affect you in the sense you don't have to pay any tax because you are in the 0% category, but that doesn't exempt you from these categories which we discussed. You still have to register, you still have to maintain accounting records, you still have to document the supportings, and you still have to file a return. There is no exemption for you just because you're a small company. Number two, my business has no revenue or less than the threshold, so I don't have to register or pay. So, yes, this is partly correct that you don't have to pay, but you still have to register, you still have to do the accounting, and you still have to file the returns. Because how is the government supposed to know, or how is FTA supposed to know that you are under the limit? Only when you file your return and when you tell them that either your revenue is zero or it is 100 or 200,000, then they will know that okay, you are under the limit, and if you are selected for audit, then they can come, and at that time you should be ready with your accounting records. So when they ask, you can tell them these are my financials, these are the supporting for the financials, this is what I have filed. So they will check and then they will clear you.
Correct.
This is the question related to what you had just asked, right? Mr. Javed had asked, if I'm not wrong, that I have a free zone license, so I'm exempt. This is wrong. There are free zones are considered as qualifying free zones, but it's a very stringent category that you have to fulfill and very strict conditions that you have to meet before you can be considered as before your income can be considered as qualifying income and before you become exempt. It's not that easy. Most businesses who do free zone businesses, they are not exempt from paying corporate tax.
So there was one more question with this. I think in the same line, I have a Dubai license and it's expired. Did we talk about it? And it's expired, and I also have no plans to renew. So do I need to register for corporate tax for that expired license also?
Yes. So the thing is, with the expired license, you will not be allowed to register for corporate tax because this also goes with the requirements for corporate tax. You should have an active trade license. The trade license which you will upload on corporate tax and the details which you will upload on the portal, they have to be valid and active. Only if they are valid and active will they be accepted, right? So if he has an expired trade license, he will not be able to upload that information, and the portal will prompt him to put an expiry date which is in the future from whatever date he's applying for. In that particular category, right, he is in a very difficult position because he cannot register for corporate tax. But yes, if he misses the deadline, he will be penalized because an expired license under FTA rules is still considered as a valid license and you are still considered as a taxable person. So just because you have a expired license and not a cancelled license, so one of two things need to happen, right, for this person to be in compliance. Number one, either you renew your license on time, right, and we register for your corporate tax within the deadline, then you're safe. Number two, if you're not going to use this license, go to the relevant authority and get it cancelled. So once it is out of the records, then again you are out of the tax jurisdiction as well.
Correct.
One of those two things need to happen. You cannot keep it expired and not expect a penalty to come. That will not work.
Correct. Also, what are the documents? Because Mrs. Madhuri Petnikar had asked, what are the documents needed for corporate tax filing?
Okay, so very basic documents are required. Number one, you need a trade license, active trade license. Number two, whoever are the shareholders, or to be very specific, shareholders who own more than 25% of the stake in the company. So let's say there are 5 shareholders, right? And if one owns 50% and the remaining own like 10-15%, so you need to upload the details of only the person owning the
maximum
share, basically more than 25%.
Okay.
If let's say there are 2 people owning 30 and the remaining own less, then the ones who own 30 and 30, you need to upload the information of those 2 shareholders. The information that you have to upload is also very simple. You have to upload their valid passport copy, and valid Emirates ID. This is also something you have to take care of. If your Emirates ID is expired, you will get stuck at that stage as well, and you will not be able to proceed further. So make sure that all the shareholders in the business, if you hold an Emirates ID, then it has to be a valid one.
Correct.
Then you need certificate of incorporation. That is, if you have it, there are few authorities who don't issue a certificate of incorporation. In that particular case, you can also attach your trade license. And then you need an MOA, that is Memorandum of Association or Article of Association, whatever your authority gives to you. This is required for FTA to identify the shareholding, that the shareholding which you have just disclosed individually, is it in line with your memorandum that you have attached?
Correct.
And the memorandum can also be used to denote who is the authorized person. Because if you have an authorized person, you have to upload their details as well, right? What is an authorized person? Is basically the person who is put in charge of running the company.
Yes.
If let's say there are 5 shareholders, and of course all 5 shareholders don't need to come for signing every single check, don't need to be involved for opening the bank account, don't need to be involved for basically even signing an employee's offer letter.
Correct.
So what they do is they denote one person and they elect him as the manager of the company, or they take 2 people and they make those 2 people as the manager of the company. So that all information should be there in the memorandum, and if it is not there, then a separate power of attorney would be of course it would be in place and it would be attested and everything. Then in that particular case, the power of attorney will also be required.
Achha. Okay. Ministry of Justice is the one who makes the power of attorney, right? Yes.
I think, yeah, I guess.
Okay, so we have a question by Mr. Arjun Sharma. He is asking, I currently have a company in Dubai mainland with 99% of my transactions related to drop shipments, movement of goods from outside the UAE to the inside of the UAE. Given that designated zones after a 0% corporate tax rate for such transaction, is it possible to relocate my company from mainland to a designated zone? This is one. If so, what are the minimum requirements to establish sufficient economic substance? Additionally, would the general anti-avoidance rule, that is GAAR, apply to such a move for tax purposes? Please advise on the best approach to shifting the company to a designated zone in order to benefit from 0% tax. What is 0% tax, Obeid?
So what we were discussing above, right? I'll just take you above. So over here, what we were discussing, qualifying income has 0% tax.
Okay.
Okay. So what happens is, now this question, what he's asking, right? As I had told you regarding Mr. Javed also, the question number 1 is, what is your business activity? So now in this question, the business activity which he has mentioned is drop shipping.
Yes.
Yes. Drop shipping is, even if it is done from outside UAE, right? It is done to individual customers, right? Drop shipping is not B2B business, it's a B2C business.
He says from outside the UAE to outside the UAE.
Outside the UAE to outside. Export to export.
Yeah, export to export, and he's kept this, I think, only for his banking purpose, as far as I understand.
Okay, so again, what happens in this particular case, right? For to be a qualifying income, right? You have to provide services to either mainland companies within UAE or to another free zone company, right? And this has to be under the qualifying income category. Drop shipping business doesn't come under the qualifying income category. So just in this particular case itself, he is not eligible for qualifying income. Number 2, he said he has a mainland license, right? Moving a mainland license to a free zone license just to come under the category of 0% qualifying income is actually not allowed under the GEAR principles.
Okay.
So if you already have a mainland company and you're doing business on that and you want to move to free zone just to avail 0%, that is not allowed. It doesn't fall under those principles.
I think Mr. Arjun Sharma should directly contact you, because there are many, one question is related to the other one.
Yeah, here's a detailed question. I think it'll be better we can have a discussion there.
Discussion, one-on-one discussion. Urvi has been raising her hand. Urvi, yes, please tell me. And we have last 15 minutes, you can say, to this call.
No, one of my question is answered. Thank you.
Okay, Siddharth Raikar, you have a question. Can you please tell here?
Yeah, basically, due to a personal circumstance, like we're a small company, wanted to ask in case in case our company has missed the deadline, is there a penalty appeal process?
Yes, I'll be coming to this towards the end of my slide, if you don't mind.
Yes, yes,
Sure,
please go
no
ahead.
problem.
Okay. So yeah, actually, this is the last misconception. So we'll just address this and we'll answer your question now itself. So yes, if CT registration was important, then why nobody informed me? This is the biggest problem which most SMEs and startups are facing usually. The thing is, yes, FTA from their side, including many news channels, have been constantly uploading and publishing articles about any update, and the deadlines were very heavily advertised. And there are lots of tax agents. You will see them posting ads almost everywhere about this. Other than this, yes, it should have been informed to you by the person who helped you set up your company. And if that was also not done, then basically that's where the main question which Mr. Siddharth, right, he has asked just now.
Yes.
What do we do in this particular case? That if we were supposed to register, nobody informed us, we weren't aware, and then what are we supposed to do? So yes, there is a particular facility which is put on the FTA portal. It's called a reconsideration. So what you can do is, if you have missed the deadline and a penalty was applied, you can go, you can file a reconsideration, you can explain your circumstances to them, that whether you were not aware, and you have to of course prove, because FTA, if you ask them, they will tell you very clearly that we made sure from every possible way that if you have a license, you are supposed to register. All free zones are supposed to send you emails and update you that you have to register for corporate tax. It's a big news. It was supposed to be your responsibility to go and check. If
Yes.
still, despite all of those things, you still miss the deadline and you weren't aware of the deadline to begin with, right? Then there has to be some circumstance or some reason, some valid reason why you missed it in the first place. So you can go and you can put an application. If you have any documents to support it, that would be even better. There is a portal. You can put in your reasons. You can, if there is any legal reason why you were why you were not able to register, you can even upload those documents, and you can make an appeal for them to repeal the penalty. And if your case is valid, and if FTA considers that they are not able to prove, that is the reason they give. If they are not able to prove with proper justification that you missed the deadline out of non-compliance, then they will remove the penalty.
I see. I just had one more question pertaining to the same thing. Is there any accounting tool, that accounting software that we need to, work on and then update our accounts in that?
Can I answer this question with the next slide? Because this is where we are right now. Yeah.
Yes.
So so now we talked about lots of penalties and lots of things that the companies are supposed to do and all that. So now let's talk about reliefs. Number one, if you are a small company, right, or let's say you're just a startup and you're like within maybe let's say 2 or 3 months into your business, right, you barely have any transactions, and you're not an accountant, you don't have a finance degree or anything, any background in finance. So how are you supposed to do this accounting, right? What FTA does is they have given you a relief. What they are saying is you can do a cash basis accounting, right, as compared to accrual accounting. Just to give you a short description of the difference between the two, cash basis accounting is basically you receive the money, you count it as your revenue, you paid the money, you count it as a expense. What happens in accrual accounting is you have to go deep and understand when revenue is realized. Let's say you are in the service industry and your client paid you money on day one, your service finishes on day number 30. So as per accrual accounting, you can't record revenue till day 30. So that's kind of a difference between the two. If your revenue is less than 3 million dirhams, then you can apply for cash basis accounting as well. But what I recommend is, most startups, they don't have so many transactions in the beginning. But of course, we wish that 3 months, 4 months down the line they start their proper business, and of course, outsourced accounting might be required. In that particular case, you start with cash basis. So at least there is some information you can give to your accountant, and you don't miss out on data, and you don't spend months recollecting what happened in the prior months, right? So that makes things easy for you. And of course, you can move to accrual accounting right before your filing comes. And the second relief which is given is small business relief. So let's say you're a small business, right? And this especially affects service-based industries where you don't have lots of employees, you don't have a cost, right? Whatever the cost is, it's you. You are the one who's giving the service. In this particular case, it's very easy to cross 375, right? Because you barely have any expenses other than rent and maybe few office expenses. You don't have so many expenses. So what do you do in that particular case? FDA understands this problem, and they have given a thing called small business relief, which is also famously known as SBR.
Correct.
In this particular case, if your revenue is less than 3 million dirhams, right, and if you have an ongoing business and with audited documents, audited financial statements, you are able to prove that for the past 2 to 3 years you did not have revenue which crossed 3 million dirhams, then you can apply for small business relief. And then even if your if your net profit crosses 375, but your revenue is less than 3 million, then FDA will allow you to come under the 0% category. But so far they have mentioned that it's only till 2026. In 2026, we will find out whether they extend this relief or do they cancel it altogether.
Okay.
So this was my last slide, which brings us to our next Q&A session. So let me answer
Is
the
there
question.
anybody having any question? Does anybody have any question? Because in the group we had around 6 questions which we have answered. We have last 7 minutes. If anyone would like to ask a question, that can be quick. No one?
While they are oh, while they are asking, I'll just answer your question, which you asked, the last one,
Yes.
whether you need any
Accounting software.
yeah. The thing is, yes, of course, it is recommended that you use an accounting software unless you are really, really amazing at Excel and you're able to, do your entire accounting on Excel and create financial statements on Excel. That's another story altogether. But of course, accounting software is recommended. It helps you maintain data. They have backups. There is a lot of work that goes into building those systems. So it helps you. It helps you maintain that data for a long time. You don't always have to worry about misplacing your Excel somewhere, and it is more structured. It becomes more easy, and even if you change accountants, then you don't have to worry about the formatting or whether the next person will know how to use Excel. You just have to
Yes.
give them the software. It's easier to use.
So anybody wants software in Excel, you can tell Obeid. He is genius in Excel. We have Sri Sudha Rajesh. She's raised her hand. Yes, Miss Sri Sudha, please ask your question.
Yeah, hi. My question is more related to, I guess, VAT. Like you mentioned, for the service companies. So, in my case, most of the payments are towards the government entities, like for licensing and all. So, how do they take that profit? Like, for example, my client pays me 25,000, out of which maybe 20,000 will go to the government, and only 5,000 will be my income. So will they consider all this 25 as the company's revenue or only this 5,000?
Okay, so just to repeat your question, and please correct me if I'm wrong. You're talking about, let's use a company setup business for an example, right? Let's say you want to set up a license which costs 25,000 dirhams, right? Out of which 20,000 is regarding the license, the government fees, approvals, etc., etc. And out of which 5,000 is only your service fee, right?
Yeah.
In both cases, even for VAT and for corporate tax, the 20,000 dirhams is the government fees. It's called client account fees. So when you do your accounting, you do not recognize this as revenue, although this will come on your invoice,
Okay.
right? And as a rule of law, you're not supposed to charge 5% VAT on the total 25,000 to your client. When you will charge VAT, you mention that these are client account fees, these are the government fees, these will be paid, received from you and paid directly to the government. We are not going to be, this is not transaction. That's it. Then you mention your service fees, the work which you will be doing, and you put VAT on that amount. And even for corporate tax purpose, that will be your revenue. Not 25,000, only 5,000.
Okay, that answers. And for the VAT threshold, VAT registration threshold also, is it the same way or?
No, so VAT works in a different way. Corporate tax is at net profit. VAT
Yeah.
is on sales. That's the first line of your profit and loss statement, right? If there are two thresholds, you have to consider for VAT purpose. Number
Yeah.
one is 187,500.
Right.
If your
Voluntary.
revenue crosses 187,500, you can register if you want, but it's not compulsory. But if you're about to cross 375,000, then you have to register for VAT. Otherwise, late registration penalty will apply.
And for this 375,000, will they consider this from the earlier example 25,000 or the
Yes,
5,000?
5,000.
5,000 only, right? Okay, right. That answers. Thank you.
Most welcome.
We have time for just one last question. Anybody? Rashida, PV, yes, please tell me.
Hi sir, good afternoon. Actually, my question is, can you give us the some small information about the payment voucher? How does it work?
Payment voucher.
Yeah, on DED payment voucher.
Uh, can you please explain your question? What do you mean payment voucher on DD?
DED payment voucher, like to renewal the license, trade license, we use the payment voucher, right, to make some discounts. So regarding that, I need some information, like what exactly it is.
In that case, Rashida, I think it's best you connect with Mr. Obeid Jasnaik directly on his number. I think his number is there in the group. I can give you further more information because this will be a little lengthy answer, lengthy response, and we are running short of time, which we have only last
Okay.
5 minutes left. So
Okay.
before we conclude this, I would like to thank you all that you have joined today. Mr. Obeid Jasnaik is registered on Ruby Dial with Accounting. The name is Aquo Accounting. And he is very good in Excel, genius. So please contact him for all your corporate tax and VAT issues. And for any one of you who wants to join us next week, wants to be the guest, please do contact me for the same. Obeid, do you have anything to talk about it?
No, that's all. This was a wonderful session. I hope I was helpful. I hope the data which I presented was clear. Everybody could solve most of the misconceptions. I tried to address majority of the misconceptions that people have. And if anybody has any further questions, please feel free to contact me. Thank you so much, Ms. Rakhee, for holding this session.
Thank you. You're most welcome, Ubaid, and see you all for being. Thank you very much for being such a nice, participants here, and it really helps us. Mr. Riker, thank you very much for your thumbs up. Urvi and Afsha, and thank you all very much. See you then. See you next week. Bye bye.